Element RC, Gatekeeper. Are you going to be the keymaster? Ghostbusters reference. Let's get to the kitchen.
Morning. Welcome to the kitchen. I'm Derek, your host, or the guy behind the camera. Velocity RC Cars Magazine. This is the spot I do a lot of work. In the kitchen, like you, on the table. You get yelled at. Little screws on the floor, you step on them like Legos. But today is a good day. Today, I'm building this new kit from Element, the Enduro Gatekeeper Builder's Kit. I already ruined the manual because I already got excited and tore into the box apparently. What's a kit, you ask? That's a good question for used people, utes that have only had ready-to-runs. You have to build this, every part of it, not just put a battery in, not peel off the plastic off the body, some body clips. This is from start to finish, you're building it. This kit doesn't come with tires, doesn't come with electronics, so you gotta pick a lot of stuff. So when you pick one of these up, you gotta make sure that you know what you're doing by getting electronics first. Sometimes I don't. I took some cheater steps. This kit was already supposed to be built, but I went on vacation, so it wasn't. Today we're Captain America, so my theme will be very patriotic and not patriotic if you aren't here. And then I also matched my coffee cup this morning. It's almost October. So if you're watching this in October, this makes sense. Very orangey. So another exciting thing today, I bought some tools. These are Protex 1/4 inch drivers for my Makita drill. This will speed up all screwing everything together. You get the scent of tension. I won't strip anything out, and I'll build it faster after this cup of coffee. So let's look at some parts. You'll see me build some stuff, and then at the end, tell you what I thought of the build. And I have all the electronics, I think. So we're 2 steps ahead of my last video. So let's get to work.
Pretty solid instructions. All the screws are listed on a single page, so this way when you're building it, if you need to know what 3x8 cap head and button head and all these, whatever screw you're using is listed. There are spacers, everything, except a couple of the things are missing. I did find a couple screws that aren't there. It did say titanium when I know they're not. But overall, pretty easy to follow and just pay attention and really get a magnifying glass.
So my GoPro is charging, so gonna be missing a little bit of some of the building blah, blah, blah. But I'm through bag 1, 2, 3, which one is just the frame rails. And so far, so good. What I learned so far when building the Gatekeeper here is they do use a lot of different size screws. So for example, I got caught out like an idiot in the frame rail or whatever they call it. But they do use two sizes different here, and they're kind of in some of the chassis braces, depending on the thickness of the chassis, they do adjust it. 6 to 8 millimeter, not a big difference, but I put a 6 and an 8 and you strip it out. So make sure you're paying attention, drink more coffee before you start. But overall, the chassis is pretty standard. The plastics feel really good. They're very firm. They feel like they got a lot of glass in them. It's a nice quality feel. Dog barking in the background is always good. But here we are. So back to the next bags. It goes much faster with the power screwdriver. One thing you do have to remember, because this one's actually a little bit too fast, it heats up the plastic, and you can burn your finger when you're holding the other side, because that's what I did. But you can also strip the plastic very easily if it's not going in right. And you also melt it a little bit, so you'll actually weaken it. So be careful how fast you're using the drill. Put it on the slowest speed. It does save a lot of time. Dog bark, no bark, just like our live shows, no bark. We're in the kitchen, that's what happens. I mean, you get birds, mailmen may come. But overall, cranking along here. I'm a little bit behind on the times. Everybody else released their video by now, and I didn't, that vacation thing. But we'll get this together today, to be honest with you, because with this guy and how easy this goes together, these trail trucks are really kind of basic, even though they look really complicated, just a lot of bracing. But just crank through this thing, and it's fun to build. It's not a lot of annoying parts. Just pay attention to directions. I will say that the instructions, let's get this out of my mouth. Some of the photos a little too tiny. I know on a screen when you're blowing it up on your giant 27-inch iMac, those diagrams of showing direction and what's just where everything is going is easier to see on a big screen. But on this paper, a little too tiny for me. There are some things in here that did note front on a couple parts that was helpful, but a few of these parts have like a little bit thicker front and rear, and it was really hard to tell which side was supposed to be up, so I hopefully guessed right, or I have to take... Bad thing about a ladder chassis is that if I need to take this sucker out right here, I gotta take the whole thing apart. So hoping I guessed right, probably did, and just keep cranking. And if it's wrong, you won't know because I won't tell you. I will tell you. So back to the grind here. More coffee, this way you don't screw up, and pay attention when you're building stuff. I don't know why I'm about to shut this thing off. We are on to the legendary Stealth X transmission. For those who've been around racing forever will know that Team Associated kind of created this Stealth transmission. And what that was is that originally they had like a 6-gear transmission and a strange external differential. Interesting at the time, but we've evolved and now we have a 3-gear transmission. In this one, we actually have, we're driving front and rear at different rates. So this kit's cool. It comes with a lot of gears. You get 3 of these, you get 3 of these. Pinion, and then I guess we'll call them drive gears. You can run this truck in 3 configurations, 1-to-1 in the front, a slight overdrive to the front, and then the most overdrive to the front. What that does is make, obviously, the wheels in the front drive faster. So for crawling, it'll pull over things. Going downhill, you'll get kind of a drag brake effect because the rear wheels will spin slower, therefore kind of slowing you down. It's like, you know, sticking your foot in the rear tire. I guess you could flip this and run overdrive to the rear. And I think that might help in some situation, but probably not. Don't do it. If you do, let me know what it does, if you felt anything. The metal gears are labeled, easy. My tired old eyes, these green eyes, cannot see if these plastic gears are labeled teeth. Still looking, I can't find it. So the only way that, since I'm running the most overdrive, I'm exaggerating this a little bit and I'll have a photo, but I just stacked these up flat, and since it's the biggest and the smallest, I chose the biggest and smallest. It's 54 and 52, I think, or 56, 52, whatever the split is. The middle one you throw out, not throw out, you're gonna keep it in case you need it. And the same with the metal gears. Just pointing out that these were hard to see, and I would have liked a number on there. If they're on there, I apologize, Element. If they're not, I'm mad at you. But I still can figure it out. You can figure it out. So if I can do it, you can do it. Trust me. So on to building the transmission. I'll have some fancy, better looking photographs in there instead of my blurry video shaking from the table. So let's go back. New cup of coffee. And I'm going to stop trying to shut the video off before I stop talking. I think I'd learned this by now, but I didn't. So let's get back to work. Little trick here, screwing these caps into the gears. They got little 2.5 millimeter threads, nothing to really hold on to. They tell you to grease the screws, and I was like, why would you grease a screw? But they're pretty tight and the plastic's hard, which means it needs some lubrication. Don't shove it in dry, you know what I mean? So put the grease on there, don't be afraid of it. I put an Allen wrench through the pinhole. This way I can hold it instead of filing down my skin with the this guy, and because it was pretty hard. So get it tight, but that's a little trick. Use the pin. There's a little camera here. Go through the slot, and then it'll be much easier to get together. Okay, half a cup of coffee, not too bad, building the transmission. So I'd like to point out that I'm not an engineer. Actually, I am an engineer. I did go to school for that, I forgot, but it's for natural resources. So if you want me to test your groundwater, I could do that for you. As far as designing transmissions, that's not my specialty, but I can say this, built more than one. So this is a rock racer, crawler, faster than scale speed kit. I did find it odd that there's no slipper. Now I get why there is no slipper, because you want full power. It's locked everything except for the center is overdriven. Oh, actually, it is locked in the center. That's a dumb statement. But no slipper means if you're putting some serious speed and power into this, going over rocks fast, you do run the risk of breaking something. And now they may have over-engineered this, and I'm not trying to say that this will break at all. But from my experience, when everything is locked and you're putting bigger power than like a 35 turn crawler motor, you do run the risk of breaking something. So if there is an option to put a slipper on this and you're serious about kind of going faster through rocks, I would put a slipper on this. And now you could lock a slipper, but at least you want it to give every once in a while. Not ideal for crawling because you don't want it to stall, but even then, it's probably not a bad idea. But I don't know if it was cost savings or they just didn't want to put it in there, but this is not a slipper. It's just a gear mounted on there. But there, obviously, it's set up that I think you can put a slipper on this. It's fairly cheap, and I'd recommend it, even though I am an environmental science management engineering degree. I would engineer this different. Good morning. It's getting weird because this shirt and cup matching is not on purpose. I have no idea what's happening, but it's subconscious. America, blue, red, white, blue, orange. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, today is, you're watching this in one long, boring video, but today is rear pumpkin day. Or, sorry, front axle day. So the GATEKEEPER's got some solid rear axles. The plastic's really nice and stiff. You got metal gears. Front CVA or whatever we want to call these days, CVD, CVA, CV joints. Here's the little wormish gear here. So we're gonna get to work on this, itch my nose, and watch some of this stuff, and I'll tell you what I think about building axles and pumpkins. So look at the video. So these are pretty simple. They're just solid axles, so you just have an input gear. So one of the things that I've learned from building more than one four-wheel drive car is you can put that solid locked gear in the wrong side. And what happens is you will actually have wheels turning against each other or pulling away from each other. So the wheels won't go in the same direction. So just pay attention. It's a stupid mistake. And I won't say that I've done it before, but I've never done it before. I don't even know how to do that. It's very difficult to say yes and no at the same time. So just pay attention, look at the tiny little instructions, make sure you're lined up, and you'll be okay. So just a quick note here. This is the pumpkin. It's supposed to fit into this pretty easily, but I realized that it wasn't fitting that easy. So I just took an X-Acto and kind of chamfered the edge so it had like a lead-in position, and then it's really tight, which isn't bad because you don't want stuff getting in here. But if you're gonna take it apart, it's too tight. So put a little dab of the assembly grease on there after I cut the little edge off to get it to line up. I did get it to go on, but it's still super tight. I'm not even gonna be able to do it again on camera. It's great. But it snaps in super duper tight. So hopefully I never have to take this apart again, because that will probably be a pain in the ass. There's no real place to put a screwdriver in there, get leverage, but just a little kitchen tip, use an X-Acto, kind of angle it out and put a little grease on there, because if you want to get that out, you need some lube. Cool little feature on the front suspension, front steering, is that right here, you can see these are the caster alignment tabs. So you can actually adjust the caster and change the steering feel just by basically pulling this off. And it's got teeth, and you can twist them to go positive or negative caster. Right now, it looks a little bit tilted back. I can't tell you how many degrees, but I can find out at some point. Maybe I'll put that in the video. Maybe it's a surprise. But make sure you have them aligned. You don't want one all wall-eyed over here, because get a pretty good, I don't know if it's like a half a degree adjustment on each thing, so you can be a little bit off. So just make sure they line up. We're jamming pretty hard here. So one of the things I really hate about hexes is that pin. See that what happened? This pin goes in this hole, pretty straightforward. But if you take the hex off, normally, you just got a plastic hex, your pin goes. Good example. Element, smarter than you and me, they put a set screw in there. So instead of a clamping hex, they just have a set screw hold the hex on there. So when you take the wheel off, your hex doesn't come off and you lose the pin out in the dirt somewhere or something stupid where it always happens where you can't find it, like on a yellow towel. So thank you for the holes, good holes. Sometimes I make mistakes, but I make them for you. This is the rear pumpkin, sticking to the instructions. You are supposed to put the axle in before you put the bearing in. Otherwise, you get this. No worky. So the directions clearly show you that, but because I'm smarter than the directions, I just put the bearing in and then screwed everything together. So solid axle in, bearing in, and then that'll work. Actually turn the gears. And then 2 giant oversized retaining screws, shoulder head screws, to keep the bearings in. But hey, I'm using 2 millimeters on almost everything, so I'm not gonna complain that the screw looks ridiculously big for what it's doing. But do it right and don't do it wrong. Right, wrong, wrong. But I did it for you. I'm pretty honest. And when I'm an idiot, I'm very honest. So normally when I build a kit, one of my tips, it's not really a tip, it's what I do. When I throw out all the bags and plastics and trees and stuff that come in there, I put it in the box. In the box. So this way when I go, hey, where's this other part? See this part? And see no part? Part, no part? And I look down, I'm like, oh no, I don't know where that part is. If I threw it out, it's right next to me in a box. I didn't do that this time. I threw it out. But luckily, it was just in the garbage. And this is why I usually put everything in a box until I'm done, because a part like this, which is very important on here, obviously, not very happy without it, was in the garbage and I found it. So be smarter than me, do what I say, not what I do, or I don't know, but put all your trash in something that's not trash until you know it's trash, because then you will not lose your part. And thankfully I didn't lose it. Just a small, I'm not complaining, but I'm complaining. These are the links. You have to thread basically like rod ends on there. But as you can see, they're smooth and no place to grip, and that's full thread till the end. So I would wish they had a hex on there so you can grab it, or a hole through it. But what you have to do is grab it with some cutters and really hard. You're gonna mark the bar, but that's the only way I can see it getting in there. And you have to build a lot of these, which I'm not gonna show you because it's going to be me swearing, because nothing worse than building tie rods than building tie rods that are basically you put grease on and try, I don't know, you're supposed to divide it and do it? I'm not sure how they thought you were supposed to do this, but you need some good dikes hold on to that thing with like, you know, G.I. Joe grip, and then use a Allen wrench, anything to go in there and spin it on there. It's much easier and you'll swear less. So if you want to swear less, do it like I did. If not, you may cry. Progress. I finished all the links. I swore a lot. So a couple things I noticed in the instructions is that the links don't show you the bent ones. See these ones right here? These bend. And in there they show them straight. So it's very difficult to tell the direction of the bends and how the ball ends, which are also bent, are supposed to line up. And again, I'm going to complain about the size of the manual photos or CAD drawings. They're too small, and at times you can't tell orientation or where it's actually going. It's a little difficult. So the links for the steering were difficult to figure out, and then also the attachment of the rear arms of where they were going and what part of the chassis they were going into. I don't know if it just got confused with the older models, the ones that don't have the trailing links, and it kind of just slipped in there. But it took a little bit of me looking at it, figuring out, and actually looking at pictures built online for me to figure out all the links and balls and your balls and links, where to stuff all that stuff. So I haven't said link that much since the first Legend of Zelda, but it's getting there. Obviously I'm going to be talking about the pictures, but this is where we are so far. We're going to move on to the drive shaft shocks and almost to the body, and we're almost done, except for some of the electronics, which I'm still debating. We'll discuss that one at the end of the build here. So my dog's eating in the background, you can hear him. But here we are, Gatekeeper, almost done. Let's look at some more photos and talk about it. Okay, a little status update here. Shocks are complete. I didn't do any video of the shock build. They're pretty straightforward. Threaded bodies, they got adjustable collars. The only tricky spot was there's two O-rings that look the same. One's a cap, one's for the adjuster to kind of hold it in place. Two different sizes, but just pay attention. It's pretty easy to figure that out. Pretty smooth. Pay attention to the orientation of all the holes. You got metal inserts here to adjust shock location and angle a little bit. Nothing radical. I mean, you're talking millimeter front and back. And just bleed them properly, which is not a how-to on how to bleed shocks, but if you don't know how to bleed shocks, you probably shouldn't build this kit, but you just push the piston up and let the oil go out. Tighten the cap. The piston should go all the way in and then slowly move back out. You get a little bit of pressure going in there, and that's the proper bleeding. There is supposed to be air in here. They are motion shocks. It's not, you can't have a hydrolock at the top, so it's not a bladder or anything. Other than that, we're getting pretty close, but bronze shocks. And just pay attention to orientation. A lot of things that go certain ways, and you gotta kind of look, and to be honest with you, the instructions are not super clear. I keep pointing this out. They're really small photos, and I don't really think they're perfect yet. So I think there's a few mistakes in there, but if you're paying attention and you sit there and scratch your head like me, you'll figure it out and see which steps are wrong. But the shocks are in. Different spring rates on front and rear. It's marked with a little color on the shock. Obviously the coil per inch is higher on the front, but they have color coded, can't see them on there, but it's color coded with a little dot of nail polish or whatever, shock polish, not nail polish. If you're gonna build this kit and don't have this tool, you will hate life. You will hate screws, you will hate roll cages, you will hate just everything on earth. Because I'm gonna show you an example here. This is one 16 millimeter screw for the roll cage, and I'll ask count them at like 5 million. That's one. Imagine trying to screw that in. I mean, you'd be blistered up, cramping up. Like my hand's cramping just holding it. I couldn't imagine screwing that thing in my hand. So roll cage is cool looking, but holy Jesus, don't try without this. You'll regret it. Screws. There's a lot of them in this kit. So much that I broke a tip. 1.5 snappy on the wheels, but if you don't have that, you're dead. Don't build this kit without a power screwdriver or whatever you call them. We're done, and looks pretty good. Little Joe Neary paint job, Captain America. Overall, I chose the bigger 1.9-inch wheels. I had some smaller ones for competition crawling, but I feel like it needed bigger tires. Let me know what you think down in the comments. But overall, this is the Element Gatekeeper, more of the speed crawler, rock racer U4 class. Suspension looks pretty good. Everything looks pretty good on the kit. What's cool about this is that even though this complicated cage here flips open, easy access. Little Pac-Man. So that's it for the kitchen today. It's been a long couple days. You notice that shirt changed, my beard changed, everything changed a couple days here. But the next step is to pick the motor. I'm still really leery of putting this crazy motor in here because I just feel like it's gonna ruin the experience too fast. Too fast means it flips over. Flipping over means I don't like it. So I think we gotta go a little bit slower. I don't think I'm sticking this big ass Tekin HD motor in there for short course. I think I'm gonna go with something a little slower just to be smart for once. But here we are. Next video is gonna be this thing running and my actual thoughts. Overall build, it was fun. Instructions need a little help. There's a lot of little, like I said before, I don't wanna focus on it, but the pictures are really too tiny for me to see which way things go. And there's a lot of directional parts on this that really you need to pay attention to. And they probably should put a little bit of better pictures online. But overall, it was a fun build. I'm tired of screwing things together, so I'm gonna look for a ready to run next. That's smart. But I mean, even look at these wheels. Proline wheels, we have 50,000 bolts on there to each wheel. So a total of 10.2 million bolts. And but overall, Element Gatekeeper, VRC magazine, in Derek's kitchen. Next build, I have no idea what it's going to be. Hopefully it's something easier because still have to work on that Tamiya and stick some electronics in here that makes sense. So catch you on the flip side, and maybe we'll make some sandwiches.
So it's done, but not really done, because I still have to add the motor, which I was going to add one that didn't make sense, put in the speed control, and get out and shoot all the action and video and stuff like that. Having run vehicles like this before, this class of U4, they are pretty tippy-toppy. They're not made to corner like a race car, but they're a little bit more realistic, so I have to be realistic with my expectations. But I am looking forward to running this kit. It built very easily. Instructions need a little bit of tweaking, in my opinion, maybe bigger pictures. But overall, just an expansion on the Enduro series. I can see this getting the front independent suspension as a sort of another kit, or somebody doing that to kind of help the high-speed stability, not so much the crawling. So next video will be the full review with driving impressions and all that fun stuff that normally is done for Velocity RC Cars magazine. Subscribe today to whatever, the YouTube, hit the bell, all that crap, but also the magazine. Do something, buy some stickers, buy a shirt. I don't even have a shirt, but buy one and then send me the money. So till the next video or the next kitchen series, we'll see you then.